Hello, all. I'm going to be playing Ultima Underworld for this academic sort of let's play that is wow, that's loud. Required of me. Uh-oh. I thought that installed for half a second. Oh my god. That's a lot of music. So, originally I was actually going to do, Trespasser, but that won't run on my computer. Then I was going to do System Shock, but the sound for System Shock has turned itself off even though it is activated in the profile. So, instead of troubleshooting and figuring it out, I think I'm just going to do Ultima Underworld, since, you know, I paid a lot of attention to Ultima Underworld anyway. So, I'm gonna actually create a new character instead of going on with the one that I had, because I don't want to really jump between anything. I don't think I really have to, because I don't think I'm going to be talking about any specific times or points unless they come along. So we're just going to create a new character, instead of doing anything else. So let's do this quickly. Female, be left-handed for fun. Let's do something that's good at combat. I'm bad at it. Defense. X. Oh my god. There's actually a lot here. This, like, the first thing I thought of when I first pulled up this game a couple weeks ago was that this character creator looks a lot like a Dungeons & Dragons type of deal. Which, for a game trying to create its own world, Ultima does seem to have a very Dungeons & Dragons-like feel to it. Which kind of ties it down into Dungeons & Dragons itself. Like, it doesn't allow it to be its own thing. And I think that's actually pretty interesting. Because Dungeons & Dragons itself is, I want to say it's kind of like what I think of when I think of immersive sims in a sort of traditional, original sense. Because a lot of immersive sims, if you're going to talk about this branch that we've been talking about in this class, Evolution of Narrative, or the History of the Immersive Sim, or whatever we're calling it now, it creates this sort of, it came from originally what feels like RPG elements, which is I think why it fits Ultima and then sort of Arena and Daggerfall. The first two Elder Scrolls games really fit along this thing here, along this little path that's going on. Because it all seems to have a basis in that sort of fantasy. I think because it has a basis in that fantasy trope, it helps it move along. Because fantasy and RPGs are so well tied together, and they are so much about immersing yourself in the narrative proper. And immersion, in my opinion, feels a lot like, you know, being able to put yourself into, I guess, the simulation. Let's call it that. Because I'm not above not using my own words to using the word of the definition in the definition. Who cares? So, I'm just checking something. Yeah. So, let's just finish this up. Let's just swimming, because, like, one of the things that you notice is that you die a lot by drowning. Let's do this one. Standard, because I suck. Okay, gonna need a name. Let's call it I'm forced. Let's call it assignment. because I can. Alright. Keep this character. Yes. Assignment enters the abyss. So immediately what we find is that you're just stuck in it's S and D, it's S and X, god damn it. Is that you're stuck in this sort of cave by some random guy who thought that because that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's time to die. At least in his opinion, I guess? I don't know. So one of the things that I noticed about this is that as much as we talk about, you know, systems and consistency and the world itself is reacting to you, I kind of want to talk about these little dragons so badly, because if you're going to talk about a world that is reacting to you, I feel like you also have to take into account this sort of user interface that's going on over here, because they talked in the podcast about this game about how they really wanted you to be immersed in it, and it may just be me talking from 2018 instead of 1994? 1994? I think I have that date right. Instead of like 1994, 96, that instead of doing that, there's this sort of, this user interface does kind of bring you out of that immersion. This square is so small that it's hard to kind of get used to it. And they try to fix that even with System Shock by having the user interface so on all of the sides, but the fact that there's so many controls doesn't help that. And then Trespasser, they did away with the user interface at all, which is not the way to go. And when I started playing Thief this week, I came to the conclusion that they finally it took them up until Thief, which is from 1998, so like good 4 to 5 years after this, it took them up until then to kind of hit upon this user interface sort of idea, because this is way too much. But I will say one of the really nice things about this user interface in particular is the little dragons right here, because, and I'll talk more about it when I get to like something that's trying to kill me or, you know, whatever else. Why can't, where'd you go? Ooh. When I get there or try anywhere else, I can't pick things up that way. Can't pick things up that way. Why won't you let me pick things up? Aha! I forgot how to play this game so quickly. So, one of the things about it is that these little dragons will react to you no matter if you do something wrong or if you do something good. They'll cover their faces if you're like dying or you're doing something horrible. And I think that is a little bit, and that reactivity of like the fourth wall, it feels like there's a fourth wall break inside of its own inside of the game's reactivity. And I think that's really kind of just fun and important. Got my sword. Found it this time, guys. Yeah. I could not find that torch. Apple tasted pretty good. Okay. What's nice about one of these things is that I can like draw on the map. So like if I go here, I can just be like beginning. And I think that's actually really kind of consistent with the world itself, as well as kind of the world not really the world reacting to you, but it's definitely something about consistency. One of the things Looking Glass really wanted was for you to feel like you are the person that's going on in here, at least at these early stages, from what I understand. Not so much in Thief. Like, Thief has its own, like, actual character, which I think is actually really interesting about, I realize I'm not doing much playing in this Let's Play, but which is, I think, really interesting about the difference between how Looking Glass kind of took to their own philosophy after a while. It became less about, like, I'm gonna take that because I can. It became less about, you know, merging you as trying out new things and doing something new and all of that stuff. And it's like, I remember in the original interview with Norath Inspector from like an old game manual, he talked, I believe it was, I'm pretty sure it was Warren Spector, who said that kind of the way that they designed Ultima Underworld was from a standpoint of fluid motion, and then into the idea of, you know, moving left to right and back and forth and things like that, and then from that into sort of what would you do inside of this world. Like, it's even while this texture mapping and the world itself and having a fully like a texture mapped 3D space, like the walls here and the objects and all of those things that are texture mapped out to the world, which wasn't something that you really did before, that fits with philosophy that Looking Glass had the whole time of just trying out something entirely new that no one's really done before. But also the idea that this entire game is based off of, well, what would you do if you were in that situation, this is kind of the epitome of it, because System Shock kind of requires the player character to have an idea of how cyberspace works, and Trespasser has, you know, a protagonist, and Thief especially has a protagonist. Thief is, so far out of all the games we've played, the one with the most sense of you are playing this person, not you are this person. And I think having a character, and I think even having a character creator inside of this game really speaks to that, because it allows you to, being able to choose a face allows you to project yourself or to project something you create, you know, an OC, I guess, onto the actual, like, game. Oof, this is a lot of likes and uhs. And one of the things that I find interesting about, like, that interview that I was just talking about was the fact that the idea of running into walls as something that, like, could hurt you. The fact that that was a debate that had to be had is actually really interesting to me. But anyway. That's another thing about it, though. They were talking about not reinventing the wheel and going back to, like, my D&D analogy and, like, the fantasy tropes that are very obvious in all the Ultima games, because it's so very set in that fantastical universe. And when you look at Arena, this feels so similar. It's so much like a, what is that? What are you? Oh, runes, cool. Finally, I got them. This is actually one of the things that doesn't quite make sense to me inside of the world itself, is the world is supposed to be consistently, you know, this huge thing. Why is, like, the character just sitting there with a bag and, like, taking these different runes and putting them in? That doesn't quite make a lot of sense, and I feel like that's more of, like, the system itself, like, needing to... The system is kind of separate from the consistency of this being its own world, and things like that. I know I haven't run into a single enemy, and I'm running out of time. But I think that's okay, because I don't really want to talk about, like, the combat or anything like that, like, because the combat doesn't feel all that... The combat doesn't react very well, but I do think there's a good sense of... One of the things about this game that I understand that we didn't really talk too much about is the idea that it doesn't react to you in the same sort of way that I feel like Trespasser or anything else really does, because those all seem to have some sort of, oh, you are here. You are this person, and this person is going to be important. As much as I understand that the avatar is supposed to be important, it doesn't feel like it to me. I feel like I am just roaming dungeons, and things just sort of happen. And I think the fact that the avatar is supposed to be from a world outside kind of plays with the agency a little bit. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on this game, and I hope you enjoyed them and that I hit all the talking points I'm supposed to. If not, I'm sure I'll figure that out when I start going through this video and making sure that I didn't say anything stupid. Okay. Thank you for listening!